Welcome to another episode of the Edmonds Mom's Room podcast. I am so delighted to have with us here Jess Mckeown, spirit baby whisperer, intuitive, magical human being, changing humanity by connecting people and women to their intuition. And for that, we are forever grateful. Before I even let you talk, Jess, let me just say a little story about you. I know I
Okay.
mentioned this at our workshop, but I want to just, for our listeners here, if you go back, Jess has been on this podcast before. She is absolutely amazing. I've been working with Jess for 5 years. She has helped my marriage. She has helped me bring in my third baby. She has helped me with my Earthside children, and she has helped me grow this business. And it has been such a blessing to have your insight, your ability to connect me with my own intuition and strengthen my own powers has been amazing. So I am eternally grateful for you. And welcome to the podcast, Jess Mckeown.
Return guest. I'm laughing because I really like how you introduce me and I'm working on my website and my brand and I'm like, I might have to like pull some from what you said because it is kind of an ever evolving work, right? I think I was kind of reflecting on this when I started. It was just like getting the message out that there are these things called spirit babies. And there's like one book on spirit babies back in the day, and I think more people are writing about them now. But now that all these spirit babies are here, it really has shifted to like, how do we support the parents and how do we support the kids on earth? And how do we kind of move through this cycle of being like an intuitive parent, right? And being connected. Because what I think with all this like AI stuff coming out and the election and like what is real, what is not, right? Gosh, I mean, have you seen some of those ones where it's like they're holding like a cat and has like wings and a dragon, and you're just like, that's definitely AI. And they have to say it, but like soon we're not going to know what's real and what's not. So I think knowing and trusting your intuition, knowing how you receive signals of what is true and what is not for you, I think it's going to be so important as we move forward
Yeah.
in this Aquarian age,
Ooh, I love it. I love it.
right?
Yeah. So just for reference, for people that are tuning into the podcast,
Yeah.
you came and put on a women's circle
Hmm.
for a lot of our clients here, a lot of just the general community that aren't clients yet, but will be one day. And so you brought the magic. She came into the clinic. We had a night where people could come, and you did this amazing exercise where you taught us uh, the clairs. Can you,
Yeah.
just so we can catch the listeners up, do you want to
Yeah.
just briefly describe what the clairs are? Uh,
Yeah.
and then maybe how you can enhance that with maybe a natural element. Do you just want to you don't have to take us through the exercise per se, but
Sure.
just give us a little briefing about what you did in the clinic?
Share
Um,
my magic. Yeah. So the clairs are extra sensory perceptions, right? So we have our taste, our smell, our sight, like our sort of more physical realm. But there's lots of realms, right? There's lots of layers to our experience here. And the extra sensory is a way to tap into the knowing field or the spiritual realm or the unseen, right? We all know it's there, right? Like just when somebody walks into a room and you get chills up your back, like you're feeling their energy, right? And we are energy. So to be able to tap in and have those heightened and use them to your success, your ability, whatever it is wonderful. So clairvoyance is probably what most people have heard of, and it's the clear seeing. And that's through your third eye, which is between your eyebrows. And that's like you'll get like a vision, you'll have a dream if you have like really active dreams. You might sort of like if people are talking to you, you might start to like see a picture or those kinds of things. And if you're a really visual person, if you're very artistic, if you're like what sometimes I say, like if you can like see the future, if you're a big planner, that might be a really strong zone for you, right? And so as you're getting these messages from spirit, as you're talking to your spirit babies, as you're talking to your guides, you might start to notice one area of your senses really lights up or gives you more information. The next one would be clairaudience, which is what I have strongly, and that's clear hearing. So to me, that sounds like somebody is talking or whispering into your ear, like, go there. do that. It's very subtle. It's very quiet. If it's really loud and like, it's usually your fear, your anxiety, your doubt. Those emotions are loud. Your intuition is very soft. It's very quiet. And clairaudient I also describe it as like, can you hear the, electricity buzzing in your house? Do you love music? Can you hear things far away? Are you like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? You have just like extra sensory heightened, maybe physical hearing that might translate into the more spiritual realm as well. Then we have clairsentient, which is clear feeling. A lot of empaths have this. You come into a room, you're around somebody, you said, I'm your favorite person. Maybe you start to feel really good and excited and your energy changes. Then you're around somebody who's like an energy vampire, or they're like in a bad mood. You just like naturally move away from those people, right? Just on the bus, on the street, whatever it is, their aura, their energy extends, and you can read that. Your body's reading that and moving you away, right? And the clairsentient is like, you might get goosebumps. I get that a lot. You might feel your patient's kind of symptoms. And I think you said in the circle, like if somebody's hip is hurting, you'll feel it in your hip. And there's a lot of healers like that, which is really great, especially if you're doing like physical work to feel it in your own body and know. If you are one of those people and you do feel a lot of people's emotions, pains, whatever, one of the things I learned that nobody taught me, but I just figured it out, was you can say like, okay, thank you. I don't need to feel that. If I'm talking with somebody and they start telling me a really horrendous story, my clairs will go crazy. And I just say, okay, I don't need to feel that. So then I just take in the information, but it can be really overwhelming. So put that protection up, say that you don't need to feel it, or turn it down, right? Thank you. I know that they're sad. I don't need to feel it anymore. And you can become empathic to your friend. Then we have clear cognizant or clear knowing. That's kind of in the brain area. And I have a friend that has it. And she's like, this is the hardest one to have because, people are like, oh, I see this or I hear this or whatever. And she's like, I just know. And people are like, how do you know? And it's just knowing. It's like this information has always been within you, or it was dropped within you, or you don't even have time to think when the words come out, right? It's almost like it bypasses your storage of knowledge and just kind of comes right out. You might, and oftentimes that one is like mixed with like a clairsentient or a clairaudient. You'd be like, I know this person is sick, or I know this person is that, like you just know it. And then when you have that information, then you can kind of test it out or approach accordingly with that knowing, right? Sometimes people want to just tell the knowing. And I've learned that, sometimes we have the knowing so that we can be there as a helper, right? Sometimes people don't need to, some people can't even receive the knowing right away. But if you know, like, for example, like if you know it's their hip, but they're like, no, my hip's fine. No, my hip's fine. And you're feeling it and you know it, then you can kind of go, okay, well, I'm feeling that. Maybe she's not really in tune with that. And so then you kind of do a different approach. And then she's like, oh yeah, well, I did fall on my hip and da da da. And the light bulb comes, right? So it's just using it to kind of guide them into things. And then the last two, it's like clear, I think it's called clear aliens. Correct me on the pronunciation, please. But it's clear smelling or clear tasting. And often that will be like you'll smell a grandmother's perfume. You might smell like cigarettes if somebody like was, if that was like really a part of their personality, or you might taste a certain food if they cooked a lot. I get that a lot when I'm working with the ancestors, like they'll feed me and I'm like, oh, what's this? I've eaten like across the globe. I have clients all over and I'm like, oh, what am I eating? And I'm eating this Indian food and I'm describing it to them. They're like, oh, that's that, So it's really fun. I would say those are a little rarer because we have those other senses are just so much bigger, you get so much more information. If anything, the taste and the smelling are kind of like confirmations. Like you might see a picture of a an old lady, you might get an image, and then you smell her perfume, like, oh, that's my grandmother, right? So just trying to help you make those connections. And then what we did was we had a crystal. I give everybody a little crystal. And you can do this with your crystal. You can do it with like a plant, a tree, whatever it is, and kind of go through each of those, right? And ask it for a message, right? Like for the clairvoyance, what do you want to show me? For the clairaudience, what do you want me to listen to? What do you want to tell me? For the clairsentience, what do you want me to feel? What do you want me to know, right? What do you want me to taste, right? And kind of go through those things and just sit with the element. And it show you things, right? It will show you things. It will tell you things. People were pretty surprised by the messages they got. They didn't think they were a visual person. They got lots of visual things. I also think when you do this work in a community, in a group, it does amplify it, right? So sometimes if somebody does this at home by themselves, it might not be as strong. And that's the power of circle technology. That's the power of women coming together. I think somebody said that in the group, right? It's just the power of us coming together and amplifying that energy, but you can do it on your own. And it's helpful. And then if you want to enhance, then you would just practice visioning, right? So like a great thing is like imagine your childhood bedroom, right? Something that you're familiar with, or, a favorite place, the colors, the details, the sounds, the smells, like that whole thing will light it up. So if you want to do like a 5-minute practice, you can do that to kind of enhance. For the clair audience, a fun one to do is to listen for the furthest sound away. So just kind of notice, what do you hear right now? And like I hear the garbage truck. Of course, when you were podcasting, garbage trucks come. It's like a law.
Did you hear the fire truck drive by right like before this?
Yes. I feel like they're like, hey, people are podcasting, let's go, right?
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, like with the clair audience, with a clair feeling, right? Just kind of noticing and sensing how you feel. You don't really have to like build your tactile, like what your, I would say like your given ones at birth, like your sight, your taste, whatever. I guess you can enhance those to a degree, right? Like sommières and stuff like that. But for these ones, you do want to practice them, right? Because we don't use them all the time, but then you'll be able to.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how you connected us. And it was really cool to hear the women go around and be so vulnerable to share like what they were connecting to. And you could tell, I don't know if did we put intention out there first? Did we ask everybody their intention of the night?
We did.
Okay, yeah. So it was just so clear what their intentions were when they were there. A lot of people talking about, just wondering if they have another baby coming in. A lot of people wondering, what happened to a baby that they miscarried. And so it was really beautiful. And
Yeah.
yeah, anything else you want to say on that? So you use those clairs as a way to connect us to our own intuition
Yeah.
during birth.
Right. When people were surprised, right? That's a good thing to realize, because some people might think I'm not a visual person. And maybe you're not with these eyes, but maybe you are with this eye, right? So be open that, you might be a really empathic person and, like a nurse or something like that. But then when you go in, and your sentient isn't that strong, right? So just be aware that like it could, shift or change. I think it's just what I always say after I did those exercises is all that from a little crystal. And they all laughed, right? But it's like truly, if we tune in and we spend the time, we can get whatever information we want, right? It's not the crystal, it's not even the circle. It's that you're ready to ask that question and you're ready to know, right? And because when you ask, when you seek, then you got to do something with the answer, right?
Yeah.
You got to, okay, so I asked, I did the seeking, and spirit, is like, okay, well, here you go. Right. And sometimes people just keep asking and asking and asking and never integrating or doing. And so spirit will be like, hey, enough asking, enough seeking. It's time to, do the work and do the integration. I think what was cool too is like, for me, just from like my process, I just was like, you have to get these rose quartz hearts. And I was like, what is this? Like, I don't do that. Right. And they were like really persistent. And I was like, well, I got to get them in time and this and that. And I got to get them, good quality and, all this kind of stuff. And I'm checking with all my crystal people, and they usually sell bigger pieces, but I'm like, okay, full hearts. And then there was that one woman who said that she got a message that her baby was going to give her a pink heart-shaped rock. Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and so when she said that, I was like, oh, the rose quartz were for her. So a lot of times I don't know why I'm getting these signals or calls to do things
Yeah.
until I'm like, oh, and you think like, oh, all that for one person. Like, of course, right? Like, yes, everybody benefits from that. But like that person coming into that energy needed that confirmation that from her baby, right? Like, and so one of my favorite things is to be a conduit for that kind of for messages. I
Yeah.
was just at a friend's birthday party, and her dad has passed and her husband's mom has passed. And I was sitting out, it was her daughter's birthday, and I was sitting outside because it was hot. It was like 74 degrees. Who keeps their house at 74 degrees with all these people? We were like sweating. So we're outside And I looked down, and this is funny too. Like, why did I go outside? Because I was like really, really hot. Probably also a lot of energy. And there's two pennies on the ground. And I just heard mom and dad. And so it can be that simple, right? Mom and dad. And because I know that about them, right? Because I know that connection. And it was just immediate. They're like, you have to give these to them. And so I just go in, they're like opening presents, and I'm like, this from your mom, this from your dad. And the husband was like, oh, pennies from heaven, right? And it was just like, yes, right? Because I was like, why am I going to this party? Why am I doing this? But I've realized that like spirit will put me out in the world and will put me in places to be that messenger. So it's always fun when I get to realize, like, oh, that's why.
Yeah. So when you showed up with rose quartz, I just have to tell you this. It was just such a funny, I was so aligned. So as part of like our body motion birth preparation protocol, everyone that comes in, when they're in their last few weeks of pregnancy, we give them a rose quartz just as a way to like to have a physical object of their birth prep and like knowing at least what they can control, they have controlled. It gives them a power going through their birth. And I just always felt like the rose quartz just like embraced the love of like going through this journey and then being able to like stay focused through the labor. And I, so we always have done that. And so then you show up with rose quartz, just like,
I think it's so funny, but it's like that's what it's like when you're living an aligned life. And we talk about that a lot in our own sessions, like
yeah,
staying in alignment, what takes us out of alignment, what brings us back into alignment. But when you are in alignment, it's just so easy and it's funny and it's flowy. And you're just like, of course, that's what I brought, right? Of course, you also have that energy there, right? Without me ever knowing that, right? It's kind of like that's part of that intuition too. It's like you sense things, you pick up on things, it's a greater awareness. And I think it's important. We're moving into this collective, we're moving into more community, we're moving out of this individual, just me, right? We're kind of coming back into this space of more support. And so we want to have all of our skills available to us. Why not?
yeah. Oh, I just love it. So you offered, maybe I put you on the spot a little wrongfully so, but you agreed and you came on this podcast because we had to end the session and everyone like only a couple people got to ask their questions. And so we said, okay, if you submit some questions, then we will I'll ask them to Jess on the podcast.
Yeah.
So I have two questions and people
Okay.
agreed that I could use their names. So I'm
Okay.
not I'm going to use their names. And they gave me, especially this first one, gave me like a big preface of the
Okay.
story. So is it okay if I read this? And then maybe do you need to do anything special to connect to spirit or just ask me whatever you need? But
I'm
is it
already
okay?
connected.
You're already connected.
Already connected. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, just read it and then we can go from there.
Okay. This is from Mackenzie. My spirit baby, I feel, is my daughter. I had two miscarriages in my life, one in June 2021 when I was only 21, and one last March in 2023 on my first IUI. I'm not sure if it's the same spirit trying to come through, but the past 3 years since having my son, I've always felt my daughter, and I see her name everywhere, at least once a day. I'm now
Mm-hmm.
trying with a sperm donor, and I'm on my second IUI with the donor. I have always struggled with fertility, and I have super low AMH, which is egg count, but got pregnant with my son with that low egg count. Other than that, no one can tell me anything that is wrong. I am taking a million supplements, ovulating, taking medication, nesting, getting my house ready for her, going to all kinds of womb healing and energy and pelvic floor and doctor appointments, wearing a glucose monitor, getting 10,000 steps a day, meditating, doing yoga, doing hypnotherapy and tarot, and getting all these strong messages, but it still isn't happening. And it's the most depressing thing I've ever been through. I try to focus on fun and calm and healing, but it's hard with a sperm donor when you can't just like casually try and it costs so dang much money.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my question is there anything else she needs me to do or know for her to be able to actually come? Anything physically preventing it or anything else she'd want to tell me? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Mackenzie. And I do remember you. And immediately what I felt from that story was the 21, when you were 21 and had that miscarriage. I do feel like it's the same daughter. I feel like she came in at 21 to check in, let you know you're going to be a mom. You can get pregnant. Don't worry about that kind of stuff, right? Like, and so now with the son and then this journey of waiting for her, all this stuff that you're doing, the sound baths, the da 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 da, whatever, she's like, great. You wouldn't have done that otherwise, right? Like this healing process, this discovery of how to deal with the hard times, of how to deal with the unknown, of how to deal with waiting. She's provided that for you, right? What she needs, what I asked her, I said, is there any blocks? You know, I don't feel like there's any blocks. What I feel is that there's grief from that when you were 21. That's never really been processed, right? Maybe, and when you're 21 and you're processing a miscarriage, like who did you talk to it about? Maybe not a lot of people. Maybe nobody even knows. So what this baby would like, how beautiful, with this Scorpio new moon, which I think is like Friday or Saturday coming up. I don't know when's this coming out, this
When this is
podcast.
coming out, well, I want it to come out as soon as possible, but it's probably not going to be this Friday, but the next Friday. But it might be this Friday if we can like Johnny on the spot get it done.
Okay. Well, we'll pass this message on to you, Mackenzie, before, but just do a little ceremony for her, right? Do a little sort of, sometimes we call it like a funeral service or a gratitude service, but really just releasing that baby, you know, kind of reflecting on the time of where you were in your life and probably how that wasn't the best time to have a baby, right? But just to let you know, thank you. This little one let me know that they're here with me. They're, as soon as you were kind of in the space of thinking about babies, as baby says to me, they wanted you to know, hey, I'm here. I'm part of your lineage. I'm part of your work. You lived your life, you had your son, and now you're feeling her again because she's the completion of this whole process, right? And really, what it is she needs you to see that that was exactly how it was supposed to go. And instead of kind of this place where you're doing all this work and you're like, what else, what else, what else, what else? Really, it's, oh, I just need to forgive myself, right? I need to, you know, realize it wasn't my fault. I need to kind of come to this peace with that baby and allow them to return, right? And to really shift your energy around all that stuff that you've been doing and see it as a blessing that you got to experience all this stuff, right? Gratitude is huge for spirit babies, like to come in this place of like, wow, like even if what got you there was a hard journey, the fact that you got to experience all these things, you know, they really want you to kind of feel that. um
So can I ask a question? So she needs to do that kind of grief work before the Scorpio new moon, which is when?
yeah, I think that I'm gonna look it up on my little you know, I always have like my little moon calendar on my tabs because I'm always looking up the moon. Let's see. I think it's November. So the new moon is Friday. Yeah. So you can do it like the day before, the day after. But we'll send a little message. If you give me her email, even I'll just send her this little message as we want her to get this. But
Okay.
ceremoniously, it's a new beginning, it's a new start. And so just having like they're saying, just like a little like ceremony, maybe you scatter some petals, maybe you do a little writing and you burn it or bury it or send it to sea, but just something that kind of honors the whole journey from that time until now, right? The other thing too around the sperm donor and things being expensive and not being able to do it the way that you want, kind of what she's saying is also releasing that, right? Like, you know, because you are in this situation, because you are bringing her in this way, it is the most perfect and divine way for her to come in. And she really wants you to see that and hold that and feel that. When we are in a pathway and we want to be in another one, that causes so much churn, right? It slows us down, you know, and it, what I see is it creates this like web. So the spirit baby is like, well, you know, is she wanting to do this because she wants to do this, or she's doing this because she feels like she has to, right? So come into this place of, I want to do this. I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for us. I'm doing this for health, for healing, you know, and Spirit's always like, yeah, have your moments on the journey, right? Like we don't expect you to go into everything like woohoo. But when you're calling in a baby, really in this place of surrender, of love, of forgiveness, right? Of doing that grief work and being like, she's on her divine timing. And all this stuff that I'm doing while I'm waiting for her is for the good of all, right? It's for the good of me. It's for the good of my son. It's for the good of her, right? So letting even that, like I wish I wasn't here. She's like, but you're here, mama. You're using a donor. And she's like, the good thing about a donor, right, is you can plan it and you can be precise about it and you can know when I'm coming and you can be intentional. And what I feel from that first release of the pregnancy at 21 was there is a desire to be a really intentional mother, right? There is a desire to have children on your timeline and in ways that work with your lifestyle, like it didn't back then at 21. So just honor that, right? That you requested a little bit of control, you requested a little bit of timeline energy, and now you have it, right? You get to work with that, right? Everything that's on our pathway is for us, and the more we can see how beautiful and grateful we are for having it, the easier we can work with it because it's here, right? I spent a lot of time just wishing things weren't there, and that doesn't work. um,
That's beautiful. I don't know if you could hear this through the recording, but um, when you're talking about when you were on her baby and like talking about the daughter, there was a little baby in crying in the lobby. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, I hope that picks up because it was just so beautiful.
and that's
Um,
cool, right? Like when we do this work,
yeah.
the bird coming into the window, the baby crying. I think when we were doing something in like I was doing something, I was doing something with a session, and there was like a dog that howled at the precise moment, right? Like nature, spirits, babies, they will chime in. I also just feel like she's just so sad. It's just so heavy. It's just, when you've been carrying something and wanting something for so long, it almost like takes over. And so releasing a lot of that, right? Like, you worked through the sadness, you worked through the pain, you worked through the struggle. Those are all acknowledged on this journey. But now coming to this place of maybe I'm the closest I've ever been to calling her in and bringing her in, right? And maybe a lot of what I'm hearing too is maybe I stopped doing all the things with that energy of like, if I do this thing, that'll bring the baby. If I do this thing, that'll bring the baby. Do those things for you. Do those things because they relax you, because it's community, because you love it. And let yourself be in this open space of, okay, I'm ready to receive her and trusting her divine timing, right? Miscarriages are the babies knowing it's not the right time for them, right? It's not the right body for them. It's not the right, mix of cells and chromosomes and all that good stuff, right? So trusting their divine knowledge as well. And I just really want to honor her heart rate because I really feel it. Like I feel it in my stomach, in my heart. It makes it hard for me to want to do anything. And so when you are in that state to then become pregnant and carry a baby, that's a lot. So this baby is asking for you to kind of shed a little bit, kind of, relieve some of the heavy things you've been carrying on this journey, right? And come to this place of, okay, like I've done all the things that I can do, and here I am. And I think about that baby that was born like the day after our circle. I think the mom asked, like, what else can I do? And it was just like, do you feel like you need to do anything? And she was like, no. And she probably obviously knew this baby's coming, right? But it's like sometimes we just do, right? Because it's like we're in this mode, and if we're doing something, we feel like we're doing something. But just being, right? Just being with your body, being with your son, being with, the whole journey, and really seeing it for what it is, the lessons it's taught you. Integrating that can really open up the womb space. And then let me see if there's anything else in there.
Can I touch on that story while is that going to interrupt the flow?
Just the one thing, just the thing with I wonder if she's doing self-insemination or she has a partner. Or is she going to like a place? Do you know?
I believe she's going to a place, but touch on it. What are you getting?
Yeah, just even in that process, right? There's like an uncomfortableness, right? Because a lot of people want things to be natural. And there's this big thing of like, this is the way to do it. But there's all kinds of ways for us to get pregnant. There's all kinds of ways that these spirit babies are coming in. And so just even into going into that procedure or that process with like love and gratitude to like all the nurses and doctors and people and support staff, and just come in with your little rose quartz heart, right? And just hold that energy of, wow, these people are here to help me, right? Because I think a lot of times when people have IVF or they have IUI or they have that needed assistance in getting pregnant, one of the grander lessons of that work with IVF babies is, are you ready to ask for help now, mom? I'm telling you, a lot of these moms probably don't ask for help. They do it all themselves. They go, go, go. And as we know, that only gets more in motherhood. And then you have more children. And if you don't set up that energy in your system that it's okay to ask for help, that it's actually what it requires to get this baby, what it requires to get whatever it is, there's a good chance that you might, you know, crash and burn. So the spirit babies know your personality. They know what works well with you. They know your determination level. Thank you. Sometimes I'm like, do they know our bank accounts too? But they do, right? They trust that, like, you know, it might be expensive, right? And you wish you couldn't spend that money, you know, on other things, but when they're here, none of that matters, right? So it's just like when you're in the moment, it's hard to see the end result. But I hope she keeps going.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, you had a question for me?
Well, I have a whole lot of questions for you always, but I think that we should fill our listeners in on the story that you touched on, and then I'll move on to the next question. But yeah, so we had a mom show up, and she showed up on her own time. Like she was a little bit late, and she came into the circle and just sat in, totally like fit in. Like you could kind of feel her energy was already like that let go energy a little bit. At least I got that, you know. And and then she was like, yeah, well, I have this induction planned. Any chance that I'm doing this, you know, this is going to happen naturally, or is there anything left to do? She asked you. And I loved your response. I'm going to share this because she's been open with it. She showed up at the clinic the next morning for her pelvic floor appointment, was in early labor, and she it was a 10 o'clock appointment, and she had her baby at 1:30. And so she left the clinic at 11 and,
Went
and
home, got
went
stuff.
and breathed her baby out, and just like a beautiful story. And like,
Mm.
whereas like the first one she pushed for 4 hours, you know, it's like, and now it's like, and this was just like not even in labor for 4 hours. Like it was just so magic. It was so magical to come sit in the circle, get the validation that she probably already knew that there was nothing left to do. And then baby was descending. We got to just help her pelvis like bask in that glory a little bit more. And then she just went and had the baby. And ah,
I want to know, like, what is that appointment like? She's in early labor. Like, what
yeah.
are we doing? Like, how do
Yeah,
you
if the water hasn't broke, we do some internal releasing, just making sure everything is fully stretched and like ready. And so making sure vaginal canal can just open, and we try to make every, you know, as best you can, you try to provide symmetry within the pelvic floor muscles on all the layers. And then we try to, you know, balance her glutes as well. So that's a lot of what it looks like. Can the pelvis, when baby comes through birth canal, can all the muscles and the ligaments and the blood vessels and the nerves, can they all stretch very easily? Because if they can stretch easily, then baby has a straighter chute. That's not going to be so, um, not going to be so tight to work through. And then there's a lot less damage to the mom, because the body can just open and is healthy, and then it can recoil. But when there's a lot of tension to work through, there's a lot of tearing that happens. There's a lot of hours of pushing, you know.
Well, and it makes you think too of, like, you know, the IVF process or the assisted fertility. It's like your pelvic floor work is assisting, right? Like there's this idea of like, oh, the body should just naturally push out a baby. And like for the most part, it does. But then when you're stressed and this and that and all the other things, and you had maybe a weird birth the first time or whatever it is, like then your body is impacted, right? Just like, you know, if you have a deep grief that you're holding, and other things, your body is impacted, right? You can do all the things, but until you get that support of releasing or helping with the IVF, you get that support of, you know, making sure everything is ready. Like, I just want people to take help. I want them to get support. They don't have to grin and bear it. They don't have to do it on their own. Like coming into circle, going to see your providers, like we're here to help, right? Like this work that I do is here to help, like bring these babies in and help you, you know, realize too that like spiritual things and mental and emotional things can create blocks for babies, right? And blocks, you know, can be removed easily, but it's just that it's important to know that like if you're struggling on the physical level and you can't get pregnant and you're like, you've done everything, go to your emotional layer, go to your mental layer, go to your spiritual layer and check in, right? Like, what else could be preventing that? Because it is that layered approach, right? Physical pregnancy is the last thing. You've cleared the emotional, you've cleared the spiritual, you've cleared the mental, you're ready to go. And then it's just the, the timing there, right? Which is also a very small window, right? It's like you have 12 to 13 chances a year as a woman. And then within those, it's a 25%. If you're like all systems go, healthy as a horse, a lot of people have, low AMA or AMH, right? All those things, right? So, you have to really, they're saying like be humble to your body and where she is right now or who you are right now. And that if you need help, accept it, right? Be open to that. Yeah.
I love
Ooh, I'm
that.
excited. I want to meet these babies.
I want these babies
Do they
too.
come in after for like a post birth appointment? What does that look like?
Yeah, a lot of them do. Well, we always do a like a 2 week check-in. No, you're thanks for asking. A little self promo here. Um, in the first 2 weeks of postpartum recovery, we always try to check in and see what kind of support they need. Are they currently in pain? Are they doing okay? Do they need any lactation support? Anything like that.
Awesome.
And so we always try to check in then, and then they'll come in around their 6 to 8 week mark if they can get their shit
Little
together.
baby. I just
You
need to sit in your lobby and be like, I'll hold him.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's so fun. Yeah, I love it. I love it, but it's like, you know what I love more? I still love the babies, but like, and it does definitely still get my ovaries going every time. But I love more seeing the transformation in the mom. Like that is to me the like, it's so transformative. Like you are a different soul, not a different soul, you are the same soul, but like you are a different person. It
Yeah,
is so that transformation is another episode one day, but I just love seeing that transformation. It's so powerful.
it's true. And it's funny because I've been saying to, like, I have a couple of mom clients who are, they're due maybe a little bit later, like March next year and stuff like that. But the word that comes through from spirit is you are dying. Like you before, especially the first baby, but even additional babies,
Yeah.
who you were versus who you will become, so different. You look the same, but like everything, everything is blown apart. You're shattered into pieces in birth. It's a portal. You just, and then you come back together. And that's why people want a long postpartum, at least that 6 weeks to 2 months, because you're just coming back in. Things are just getting readjusted. And then we'll see how it formed, right? And maybe you look similar, but a lot of times you become much more sensitive, much more aware of things. All these spiritual clairs and everything are heightened. So it a lot of times spirit will say like honor this person that's about to die. Do things for her that you love because who knows what that'll look like postpartum, right? And I think that's like a scary, exciting part of it, but it's so cool to see them. And I think too, what I feel a lot with the spirit babies and the lessons as I help parents as they prepare is, well, if you think you can hold off your mom now, wait till that baby comes. Then that fire comes even more. So you might as well grease the wheels now. You might as well get your mom used to these conversations because you won't be able to hold back when the baby's here, right? So that's a lot of that work. They're preparing us for family relations, for, partnership, a lot of stuff with partnership. I remember I had this one client and they showed me like this bridge, like this kind of ropey bridge. And I was like, okay, so that's your marriage and it's good. And it was strong and it was flexible. And then the baby came and the baby showed up as an elephant. This elephant just destroyed it. The whole bridge, everything was gone. And I was like, yeah, like you guys have to totally rebuild that part of your partnership, right? That part of it, right? Like some of them just totally get destroyed, right? And that's
Wow.
okay. But I think we don't really know until we start to try to be our old selves again and then realize, oh, that's not working. So, ooh, I love that.
Oh, I love that too. Okay, I have one more final question for you.
Mhm.
This is from Laura. She said, "Thank you for last night. Very fun. I found in my meditation that there was another girl there and connected that maybe when I thought another child was coming into my life, that might represent the part of my AMAB kiddo. who tells me they are both a boy and a girl for several months and wants a girl name and pronouns at daycare. Can I work with that? Or sorry, no, it says, can it work like that? I don't want to appropriate the two-spirit idea. And my kiddo has always felt like the same kiddo. And the knowing in the meditation felt strong.
Mhm.
Is
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
I'm going to finish. Is it possible to add that we are honoring the kid's pronouns and name change and rolling with what she wants and following her, his, their lead, that they are both a boy and a girl, but a girl at daycare and outside of the home? I don't think I was totally clear with that in my original writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And I remember this question. So the first thing I want to address is the like appropriation, right? So Native Americans have that term two spirit, right? So if you've done any trans, work, if you've been in the trans community, if you're paying attention, right, there is this concept that trans people have been around forever, right? This is not a new thing. It's just a new thing because of the politics of today, right?
Yeah,
And so two spirit refers to, there's male and female, and then there's two spirits in Native American cultures. And a lot of times, two spirits are often like wise and healers and, can see both. And so I get that. What my guides are saying is come up with a different name for it. Right. And like you start to put in the language and the languaging for yourself, your family, your community around this concept, because it's a new concept. My philosophy that I've heard a lot with the trans kids and also the autistic kids is that they're here to break those cycles. They're here to realize humanity is a spectrum, right? So is brain as a spectrum. People have different types of brains, people have different types of expressions. Kind of what I feel more so with this kiddo is like letting them express themselves however they want to, right? It's not like when they say like I'm a boy, I'm a girl, like feeling into that. Like maybe as they get older and there's a progression there, and there's those people can do like gender reassignment surgeries, and some people feel really comfortable having a certain type of body. I feel like as these kids that are coming in now get older, that will go down because there'll just be more acceptance. Some people will still definitely feel like they want to be in a certain body. We would love that. We respect that for them. But I think a lot more people, because, surgery is a lot.
yeah,
It's taxing, it's complex, it's, there's a lot that comes with it. So, if we can just accept them and let him be a boy one day and a girl one day and dress this way and dress that way, like, does it really matter?
right.
That's kind of what they're saying. Let's get to the humanity of people, right? And so when she was talking about that soul and then feeling that, likely, right, there's this energy of almost what I'm hearing is she got a 2-for-1. You get both. You get a daughter and a son, so to speak, right? Instead of having two children, you get this sort of like integrated energy. That little spirit is still there, would still be a girl soul, so to speak. But the sensing around and that feeling around is, hey, how do I parent this, right? How do I move through this sort of journey? And this child has chosen Laura because Laura is progressive. I feel like Laura is like, okay, we'll figure this out. We'll be supportive. The big thing I'm hearing is she's got to come up with the languaging for the school and for everybody else and her friends about how do we talk about this. And they're just saying, normalize it. Like, this is just who it is, right? Yeah, that's what I feel.
I love that.
Yeah.
Is there any, and we can take this part out if I'm crossing a line, but
Mhm.
like with Laura, like she was like, sometimes I felt like there was another soul, and like is that a possibility? Like there is another spirit baby that would come in, or
Yeah,
okay,
definitely. Right. So I think like what they're showing me is she's trying to make sense of this, right? She's trying to make sense of this child and how to parent this child. And like, I'm kind of hearing like, could this child have two souls? No, right? Nobody can really have two souls kind of a thing. I'm just checking that. But more this idea of like, okay, well, but I get both right now with this one kid. I get to parent both. I get to do both of those things. It's kind of both and totally different. But yes, there's still a little girl around if she does want to call in a daughter. Yeah. So
interesting.
separate, what I feel.
Yeah, interesting.
Separate, but like part of it because they would be a sibling. And so showing up in this way to um, help her make sense of this and help her find the strength and the valor is what I'm hearing of like, okay, this child has chosen me and I'm going to create this safe, beautiful, and protected space for them to be themselves. And I just feel a little bit of fear about having to parent a child like that in this world today. I totally get that. And so just sending her like a lot of love and empathy, but just reminding her that she was chosen because she's got this ability to go, okay, this is how we talk about it. These are the words we use, and to calmly and lovingly explain it to people who misgender them or say something else or whatever it is. Like they're saying, like she's a big educator for the community in this, and what an honor role for her to have.
Yeah.
Go, Laura.
Yeah, she's a pretty special human. She started this magical Moms of Edmonds group, and you need to join that group, Jess. She's just
You.
like, I don't know, she's got something about her. I just like it. And she posts these cool, she posts different things that she finds valuable to her life. She also has this background as a psychologist, and I don't know her that well, but I just love that she's like so connected and like takes her I just like when sciencey people and healthcare people like can think outside the box,
Yeah.
and that to me is really special. And so yeah, she's got a cool history.
Yeah, and we like back in the day, science and spirituality were both, respected, right? And people had their doctor and they had their spiritualist and they had all these things, or they resourced all the areas. And then of course, I don't want to get too much on my soapbox, but as we kind of like started to degrade the power of women and be afraid of the divine feminine and the power that comes with intuition and the softer skills and just all the things, right? Science became, medical became like the one and only. And it's like, you want to remind doctors, like, we know how to do this. We know how to give birth in a field. You know what I mean? Like, we don't actually give birth on our back a lot of the times, things like that, right? You start to realize, like, when you learn, like, oh, that was positioned because of the doctor, because it was easier for the doctors, right? And so there's just this, like, taking over of, and one of my bigger missions here is to return that to all of us, right? Not just to women, but to everybody, to have their intuition, to have their connection to what's going on, right?
The masculine improves when the feminine improves. It's so dynamic, right? It's not like it's one or the other. Yeah,
Right. And the masculine has also been shoved into this role, right?
yeah,
They don't want to be there either. They also want to have softness. They also want to be able to cry and have feelings and emotions, right? And they are so denied that, right? I mean, boys don't cry, whatever. Now it's moving back. And we're getting more of that, but it's an effort on everyone's part to kind of bring it back into that balance, if you will.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been good, Jess.
Yay.
This has been real good. Thank you. Is there anything you want to leave us with?
Oh, let's see. Hmm. I think probably the biggest thing that I'm feeling from the spirit babies from this conversation is really to know that they really are around us. Our loved ones are, our spirit babies are. Um, and that if you're feeling them, if you're sensing them and things aren't happening, right, to really let go of that timing, to kind of move into the trust of divine timing, and to really kind of put the focus back on yourself, right? What can I do for me? What can I do to remain calm, in gratitude, in forgiveness, whatever it is? Because these babies have a schedule. They know when they're coming, right? And if you feel any uncertainty, and even just notice the way that you talk about things, if there's like a charge to them, that could be part of it, right? Like, you don't have to be totally like clear and open-hearted to have a baby, but you have to have to some degree an openness and a willingness to walk through that portal and to walk through the unknown. So just preparing yourself to surrender to the portal, to surrender to the unknown, right? To kind of be in collaboration with your baby and with spirit, right? It's not all you, right? It's everybody together. So if you feel like you're doing your part, then you can rest, right? And let the other spirit and the baby do their part. Yeah. And then I'm also hearing like, and then just, sometimes it's the other partner, right? And so I find that a lot too. Like, you could really want a baby, but your partner may not, right? Or you could really be ready, but your partner, maybe says they are, but they're waiting for this job or this thing or this whatever. So really, also checking in with your partner's energy, your partner's, where they are too, and making sure that if you're doing that with a partner, right, then you're there. And I would say for the one that's doing it with IVF or with that, supported, what is
Donor.
it, donor sperm, um, even there, blessings to that ancestor, gratitude to that ancestor, right? Because that donor will be a part of your lineage and part of your family. So just gratitude to them. Yeah. To
Love
any of
that.
the supporters. And the spirit babies just say, like, and remember to like have fun. Like if things feel heavy, if things feel hard, come into that childlike effervescence and just do something fun for yourself. Watch a funny video, get a treat, go for a walk with a friend that makes you laugh. But like to the best of your ability, stay in the highest vibration possible. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jess. This has been amazing. Tell us where we can find you. What's your website? What's your socials?
Yes. My website is jessmckeown.com. That's JESS and then MCKEOWN.com. And then I'm on Instagram at Mick Jaguar. So MC and then Jaguar. And that's a funny story because when I met my husband 22 years ago, his login was Dan the dinosaur when he was like logging into his computer. And I was like, that's so cute. I was like, I want something like that. So then I was just the Jaguar. And then when I got married, because his last name's McKeown, I made it Mick Jaguar. So I
Ooh,
thought about changing it, but it's like I've been known for that for so long and I love the little story behind it. So
I love it. That's beautiful.
you can find me on the gram and come see me for a session and we'll
Yeah.
just figure it all out, right? We'll talk. And I think probably the last part too is like this year I did a lot of training in ancestors. And so now I'm able to take my work into those other layers, right? Could it be something in the lineage that's affecting the pregnancy, right? That's my thing. If you can't figure out what's going on, let's just go to the next layer, the next layer. And now, once I've done the human layers, now we go into the ancestral realm, which is fun.
It's
So
amazing. It's amazing. Get a session with Jess. Your life will improve. There's just no other way to say it. So, whether you believe it or not, or you're, super scientific and you can't open yourself up, like you will see something new. And there's just so much to learn. And the minute you can identify as a learner, your life is going to improve because there's just no failing as a learner. We identify as a mother, we can be a freaking terrible mother or a good mother. There's just no such thing as like being a good learner or a bad learner. Like you're just a learner, you're constantly evolving. And so I just think that you have so much to help us learn about ourselves and about the universe. So I thank you for being here. This has been such a fun episode for me because I just love being in your presence. But this wraps it. Another episode of the Edmund's Mom's Room podcast. Here we go. Thank you for being here, Jess.